I'm Don Jaucian. I'm the editor-in-chief of CNN Philippines Live. I hope you guys are familiar with our website, but if you're not, CNN Philippines Live is a lifestyle and culture website under CNN Philippines. So we discuss Filipino pop culture, politics, entertainment, minsan fashion and design. Okay, so the theme of today's talk is The Curse of the Happy Ending, the challenge of reinventing romance, which is actually inspired by one of Mina Esguerra's stuff. Because this last year when we were slated to do a panel during the Sunrise Festival, we did a storytellers parang panel, which is how people from various fields tell their stories. So we have people from film, photography, design, and fashion. So that was our first year because it was also our first year as a website. And now, since we've actually put out a lot of stories, and one of our more recent stories is the top 25 romantic comedies, Filipino romantic comedies of the last 25 years. And then a few months before that was the 25 best Filipino love songs of the last 25 years for Valentine's Day. And the rom-com list, we put it out in time for the new John Lloyd and Sarah movie, but eventually naging moment pala siya ng Kita-Kita, which has surpassed 300 million, which is now officially the biggest independent movie ng Philippines. So why romance? Because our site caters to pop culture, and it is undeniable that the idea of love is the most, arguably, the most dominant form, or the most dominant idea that is seen in various media. So, mayroong music, mayroong movies, mayroong books, even in the music, parang, of course, if you listen or watch any of that, talagang love yung unang-unang topic na makikita mo. So, we assemble a panel of people from literature and movies and TV to talk about the idea of romance and parang how it's constantly being reinvented, if it is, throughout the years. So maybe let's start with Sam to introduce yourselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Samantha. I'm the writer and director of the film Baha Bukas, and I'm the multimedia editor of CNN Philippines Live.
Hi guys, my name is Cruz. I directed the films Sleepless and Ang Manananggal sa Unit 23B.
Hi, I'm Mina Esguerra. I'm a romance author and publisher.
Hi, I'm Benedict Mique. I was the head writer of On the Wings of Love, Born for You, Until I Met You. Next year magpo-political ako sa Cinemalaya. No trip kayo. Ito pinapatay ko naman yung magjowa. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. So let's start off the panel with a basic discussion of your idea of romance first. Kasi ako, my first idea of romance was when I watched Disney movies. So mga Aladdin, mga Little Mermaid, gano'n. So parang, you guys, how did your idea of romance first start? What was your first encounter of love? Samantha! Where'd you clarify that? I mean, if you want to discuss like love life or whatever, you can do so, but generally this is an encounter of love or romance in the media. So maybe with Benedict first?
Paano ba? First love yan no? Actually, yung nabivisualize ko pa yung first love ko, ka-batch ko siya, kapit-bahay. So every time she goes home, tatago ko sa pakuran namin, tinisilip ko siya. Tapos yun, eventually nga, pinakilala ko sa kanya, tapos sabi ko sa inyo, I want to court you. Then what happened was, pinasted niya ako right there and there. So, diba, happy ending ka agad. Kasi yung time niya raw yung pinsang ko. So, diba? So na-encourage ko. Siguro kaya puro hugot emoji yung pinagagawa ko. Kasi yung buhay ko sa heartache. Ano pa? Meron pa ba? Oh, yun na.
In books, I first started reading romance through a series called Sweet Dreams and Sweet Valley High. And then on TV, TGIS, Wax, and PG. First ship that I really invested in.
Siguro same with si Don. Sa Disney movies, kung nakita yung romance. Little Mermaid, Aladdin. And then, after ko makita sila sa Disney movies, naka-compare ko siya with kung ano yung nasa bahay. So, parang mas na-observe ko yung mom and dad ko and kung paano sila nagiging romantic or unromantic. So, siguro yun yung parang naging bridge between kung ano yung ideal, very childish and idealized sa Disney, tsaka kung ano yung real with what was happening in my home.
For me, it was like the moment in forgot which Star Wars it was, but when like Han Solo was gonna go into the place where they were gonna freeze him, and then and then Princess Leia was like, "I love you," and then he said, "I know." Like that was for like as a 7-year-old, because like with Disney movies, like you know how they're all like as a kid, you know it's gonna end happily, but that moment, like I remember asking my dad about it. I was like, "Why didn't he say I love you back?" Because for me that was like something that shocked like my idea of what love was at such a young age. So.
Akala mag-share. Joke lang. Yun. So coming from that, of course, your first idea of love will eventually get shattered when you enter real life. This is, of course, high school. Or like yung experience ni Benedict na bastard siya again. So, eventually, how did this idea evolve? What were the factors? What were the films, the books, the TV shows, or the songs that made you form your idea of love to what it is now? Maybe with Mina first.
I guess there's an idea of love, and then there's romance, which I think the topic title is The Curse of the Happy Ending, but as a romance author, I do advocate happy endings in fiction. So there is, I guess, when you read something like Sweet Valley High number 40, On the Edge, where it involves a major character death, and that breaks your heart, and then you realize that this person is a teenager, and then it won't and then there was a love story going on that now is cut short and doesn't continue, and you're gonna miss that character. So probably that was the real life intruding into what I enjoyed as romance fiction. Yes. And then of course real life will happen and has taught me things about heartbreak. But probably yes, in reading, that was the first real when I really felt that okay, this could happen in books.
I would have segue, sorry. Iba ba yung idea ng love and romance, especially in books? Or is it essentially the same for Mina?
I'm being technical about love and romance in books because romance fiction is a huge industry, and if you want to be a published romance author, you need to write a book that has a happy ending. That's just how it works in the industry. So the idea of writing something that's about love, that's totally fine, but when you change the ending a certain way, you might not be published as a romance author by certain publishers. So if anyone has questions about that, I can answer it. But if the goal is to be a romance author, there are genre rules that we must follow. And it depends on who we want, the kind of people that we want to read our work. But a love story can be totally different and lead to a totally different ending. Yes.
Is it the same with TV for Benedict? Kasi di ba parang mayroong sort of formula na when you watch teleseries, but with The Wings of Love, Born for You, and Till I Met You, was there some sort of attempt to kind of subvert the idea of a happy ending?
Sa TV kasi, dito, mahirap hindi mag-happy ending. Kasi love teams yan eh. So end mo yan love team, hindi pwede mamatay yan. Unless sabihin na lang sa inyo network, ayaw na namin sila maging love team. So papatayin mo yung isa dyan, o sa iba. Pero
Does
usually,
that never happen?
dati, before, sila Julina, di ba? Tagal ako, when I was in Star Cinema, si Julina, tsaka si Marvin, tsaka si One Mic Bondo. Diba? Hindi ba lamang kanina mapupunta si Julina? So wala siya napuntahan yata. Parang ganun eh. Parang may mga ganyan eh. Dito, yung lately sila dito. Si Daniel, si ano? Catherine, di ba? Hindi naman kay ano yan eh. Dito, hindi naman kay Daniel yan, dahil sumulpot ang si Daniel. Binigay sa kanya yung kwento. So, ganun eh. Pero when you talk about templating, may templates ang ano eh, sa TV eh. Because it roots from sa human nature eh. If you watch a love story, especially sa TV, you want to feel good at the end naman, di ba? So human nature yun eh. Minsan, may ano ka, and even maski yung mga sad ending, it's happy ending siya actually. It's not really sad ending eh. Di ba? Maski yung kita-kita, di ba happy yun eh. Kasi it looks like a sad ending. Yes, it's sad, but happy pa rin yun. Kasi these are two people na nawala yung tiwala sa pag-ibig, and then discovered na may pag-ibig pala. Yun lang, namatay isa. Pero it's actually happy ending.
Spoiler, sorry.
It gives the promise of ano eh, love. Yun naman eh, di ba? So, ganun lang nga yun. Pero sa TV, usually yan, happy ending yan. Maski ayaw mo ng happy ending, gusto mo na patayin parehas yung love team mo. Sabihin, hindi kailangan love team. Hindi pwede mo patayin ko na sila. Ano yung sinabi sa kanila? Sabihin nila, hindi, love team yan. Gusto ko mag-crash ng aeroplano, patay silang dalawa. Ayaw na pa yan.
With Prime and Sam, I guess
Well, for me, I mean, like he said, that's the freedom of independent film. I didn't decide on the ending of Baha Bukas until I was at the editing room because we actually shot many different endings. Tapos, yung joke ko pa nga sa editor ko, oh, are we gonna go with the Star Cinema ending or are we gonna go with the ending that we really want to do? And it came to the point when we would get feedback from our producer, Cinema One, na it was looking like it was gonna be the Star Cinema ending. But in the end, I decided that I wanted it to end the way it ended. So sometimes, like, that's the magic of film. Not like Mina doesn't have this advantage, but for filmmakers, or if you work in TV, you can decide, much later on how the film is gonna end versus from the very beginning.
Ako siguro, it depends on what your definition of happy ending is. Agree ako dun sa nabanggit kanina na yung kita-kita na it looks like it has a sad ending but it's actually a happy ending. Kasi papunta sa positive, papunta sa very romantic yung idea na maniwala ulit sa pag-ibig. So, with my first movie sa Sleepless, syempre nababasa ako ng tweets like every time it's shown. Tapos, a lot of people seem to say na bakit gano'n sad ending, bakit di sila nagkatuluyan. Pero for me, hindi sad ending yung Sleepless. For me, happy ending siya. And same way siguro nung early 2000s kung ba't sobrang popular nung emo music na lahat sila sobrang malungkot. Gano'n. Pero it's yung identifying with what you're experiencing currently, how you experience life as it is, and being able to say to yourself that it's okay. Na for me, yung mga ganong endings na saying that your life, you may not always get everything what you want as it is portrayed in mainstream cinema or mainstream television, but that's okay. There's a silver lining to that. So for me, yeah, I always try to have happy endings.
I think it's also important to highlight that Filipinos have a very specific idea of what a happy ending is. And it's very different from the rest of the world. I think you can talk about this, but I'll talk about it briefly. Because like Baha Bukas has just, been showing in North America, and I've gone to the screenings. And, their interpretation of the ending of Baha Bukas is so different from the way people, have reacted to it here. Like, pinalabas kami sa Cinema One 2 weekends na. Tapos yung Twitter mentions ko, it's just full, like what Prime was saying, it's just full of people complaining about why didn't they end up together. Like, bakit, sobrang, kasi yung favorite word na gamitin nila is bitin. Bakit bitin yung ending? Bitin siya for the audience kasi hindi sila nagkatuluyan. Diba?
Mina, you mentioned na parang merong set rules for writing a romance genre. So, and likewise, yung Sam was saying na merong set rules yung mga Filipino for a happy ending. So, sa romance genre ba, is there like a set idea of what a happy ending is, or parang it can vary from time to time?
There are basic rules set, and it's not just me saying stuff. It's set by the Romance Association, the Romance Writers Association. So it's communities of romance writers formed and that serve the authors who are published by the publishers. And the agreement is the rules of the genre is that it should have a central love story, meaning that's the A plot, the romance. And that it should have a satisfying conclusion, an emotionally satisfying and optimistic ending. Meaning all of the struggles that came into the story is concluded by seeing that the relationship is rewarded with emotional justice and unconditional love. And this is what, it's actually similar. It's actually what the romance genre, I thought it would be different, but what the Filipino viewers were saying about an ending being bitin is actually what the genre requires. If they want that emotionally satisfying justice and love that the story is supposed to take them to. Sometimes there is a stretch of books that if you read them, you'll see a wedding, or you'll see a proposal, or at the very least, you'll see what they call a declaration of love. That changes from book to book. That sometimes you will see a proposal, but you won't see a wedding. Sometimes you'll see in the epilogue that the wedding happened. But authors are doing that because based on how they've written their story, they're trying to find what would be emotionally satisfying. So that, or at least make it not bitin.
Sa TV ba, is it always a wedding, yung happy ending?
Sabi ko, gusto silang patayin pare-parehas. Na kasama kong kalab team eh. Pero wala eh. Kailangan, hindi, depende yan sa age eh. Iba magkikiss lang, di ba? Yung, dapat ikasal na yan. Di ba? Kasi nag-sex na sila eh. Di ba? Yung iba magsi-sex lang. Depende. Pero, ano nga ba ulit yung question?
Dapat makasal lagi.
Yun lang ba ang question? Hindi naman lagi kasal eh. Teka, ano ba yung kasal? Yung Born for You, hindi kinasal. Yung Till I Met You, kinasal ba yun? Hindi ko nga napanood eh. Maski yung Hotball, hindi ko napanood. Ano nga ba ending? Dito. Yung alam ko lang, natutong kami sa concert, lumabas sila, kinasal na pala. Pero sa, based on experience naman, dito, we always try to make it different. But sometimes, dito, yung audience mismo nagsasabi eh, dapat ikasal na sila, ganito, di ba? Mga babasa mo sa ano, dapat ikasal yan, ganito. So sometimes you follow the audience, pero sometimes you want to tease them. Kakasal ba yan? Hindi. So ang daming tricks of the books eh, lalo na sa TV, kasi ang tagal niyan, 7 buwan yung ginagawa yung show, di ba? So lahat pa, pagdaanan, kinasal na, naghiwalay pa. Kakabalikan ulit, ay kakasal pala. Oh, 3 beses nang kinakasal to. Hindi kami napapagod. Kinasal nyo naman sila. Kinasal sa simbahan, kinasal sa huwes, kinasal sa ibang bansa. Para kami pati kami, sige naman, kasal na ulit. So depende, sa TV, 6 months yan. So buong experience mo ng buhay mo, diba? Nahugot mo na lahat. Sa gagawa ka na naman ng experience. Kaya siguro nakadalawang asawa na ako eh. Tsaka ang dami ko ng girlfriend kasi kailangan ko ng laging experience. Pero joke lang. Pero ganun nga. Pero sa TV, mauubos ang experience mo. At the same time, you have to get credit dun sa mga TV people kasi tag dito. To be honest, a lot of TV, they, katulad rin nila, you extract it from experience and from your own emotion. Kaya nga nagsasabi sila doon, ay parang totoo. Eh syempre, nung umiiyak kami, sinusulat namin yan. So gano'n. So paiba-iba talaga yung ending, depende sa... Ngayon nga, ang dami ng factors eh. Dati producer lang nagsasabi. Ngayon meron ng, dito, mayroon ng website, may fan ganito na ang bilis, automatic, pagtas ng episode, lalabas na. Diba? Tapos, it's challenging na rin ngayon sa TV kasi napipredict na nila yung mangyayari. So, lalaruin mo minsan na hindi dyan pupunta yan. Akala nyo Ganun. Okay, so, depende rin sa feedback. Pero usually yan, sa kasal pa rin. Hindi, joke lang.
This is for Asi Benedict and Pride, who's had experience in working with love teams. Parang, ano yung advantage and disadvantages of working with a big love team? Na parang, at the same time, this is actually putting your story for a bigger audience. So parang ano yung burden of working for a love team na kilalang-kilala ng mga tao. At saka maraming fans. So may expectations na sila agad. So maybe we start with Frank.
Context lang na I forgot to mention na nag-direct din pala ako ng isang Star Cinema film. Can we still be friends? Si Gerald Anderson and Carson Mendoza. Okay, so experience ko doon, una-una pa lang when we pitched the story, ang pinakaunang tanong sa amin ng management. Pero magkakatuluyan sila, di ba? So, syempre, gusto namin ng project, so upo. Happy ending. So, ayun, may expectation talaga lalo na pag si Gerald kasi tsaka si RC, coming sila from the success nung Always Be My Maybe. So, parang, ayun, love team, binubuo, and kailangan at the end of the day, maramdaman ng audience na may satisfaction silang makuha. So, yung process namin sa paggawa ng film, we had to make a happy ending. Pero for me, medyo, pag napanood, kung may mga nakapanood ng film, interpretation ko doon, it's not really a happy ending. It's up to the audience. And also, because of Kita-Kita, I think things are really gonna change because of that movie. Ngayon pa lang I've been hearing even Viva, Regal, and Star, parang they're realizing na there are other ways to end the story. And who knows, yung mga lalabas na mainstream films, like yung ginagawa ni Tonet, yung Love It to the Stars and Back, maybe we won't get the usual endings na super rainbows and happiness, everything.
Love team. Yung love team talaga may expectations, especially pag hot sila. Kasi may kasunod pa yan eh. Diba? It's a franchise. Love teams are franchise. Hindi yan isang bagsakan. Diba? At the same time, if you're starting them, ang laki ng expectations niya. So kasi hindi yan isang pelikula. Pang-4 na taon, 5 taon yung love team na yan. So talagang you have to be careful. It's funny kasi some of the projects there, hindi maghahalikan yan sa umpisa. Mag-e-end yung buong show, hindi naghalikan yan. Diba? Ganon. Kasi sa pelikula sila maghahalikan. May mga ganon yan eh. So it's being strategized. Kaya yung sikat niya, ang tagal hindi naghahalikan. O kaya dadayain, nakalik ka nun, ikot ang camera, tatakip. Diba? So, ini-strategize talaga yung mga love team. Tapos working with love teams, mahirap talaga kasi when you say love team, may fans nga yan. So may expectation sila. So pag nagkamali ka dyan, ibabash ka niya ng kung ano-ano. Yung mas masarap pa nga yung hindi love team kasi katulad nung Kita-Kita. I did before, hindi ko love team, pero tagal na nito, yung Till I Met You rin, si Robin Regine. Tawag dito. So it was not a love team. So yun, medyo hindi happy ending na ending. Pero yun, mas nakakapaglaro ka. Sa love teams, hindi ka masyadong, malalaro mo. Depende yan sa level ng love team. Ang maganda dun sa, what do you call this, sa Jadine, pwede na sila mag-sex. Yung iba hindi pwede mag-sex. Lahat nakikipag-sex na ngayon pagdating na so, diba? So may ganung level yan. So hindi pwede mag-sex yan, hindi pwede mag-kiss. Ano ba to, love team? Hindi nag-kiss? Diba? Babaliw ka ng, ano magiging romantic to? Hindi mag-kiss. Diba? So mahirap, depende rin sa love team. Marami expectations.
For romance novels, ano yung tentpole ng story? Is it, meron din ba silang love teams? Or parang, because you already have a set ending eh, so how do you make the audience interested na parang, I'm sure they know it's gonna have a happy ending, but how do you make them interested? How do you make them hooked? Ano yung parang basis of a good love story?
Oh, wow. The secret. No, well, yeah. Context there is, yes, romance readers do read a romance novel knowing that this is going to be worth it because of the happy ending. Anything you put them through, they're gonna survive it. So yun, then you play, that's where you play with what are people willing to take. Knowing that it's gonna pay off, knowing that it's gonna work. How much do you put the characters through? Ako kasi I like actually books that are very rom-com style in the writing. So I like banter, I like yung medyo away-away, I like the very contained short time period na stories. So I like that they just met. It's a short period of time, and then all the tricks to get to know each other in a short period of time. I like that. I like plot. I like plot in romance novels. I like when it moves along. Sometimes though you'll encounter a romance novel that's totally popular that has none of that. That is all character, years and years of two people just going back and forth. So Outlander, for example, is technically not a romance novel, but it's gone on for 8 books and 20 plus years, and they're still together, and they've aged. The central couple has aged in that story, and they've gone through so much, but you're still willing because you're still willing to go on that journey with them. So para sa akin yun, that's whatever is that magic combination of two people really clicking. I like reading that in any kind of romance novel.
Because you guys keep mentioning Kita Kita, which is kind of a game changer for the rom-com films. Sa romance novels ba, merong parang naging game changer, and parang how was the audience reaction to it?
I haven't seen it, I'm sorry. I know the reactions of people who have seen it, and sometimes when there are game changer books in many ways, but what we notice that the romance community is pretty much resistant to is the idea that the sad ending as the ending. Game changers, yes, there are books, very popular books that play with the formula. There are sometimes like the fact that Filipinos are writing romance novels and the most popular romance books are still written by Americans. Any kind of Filipino book that gets, any kind of Filipino written book that gets noticed becomes a game changer in that way without changing the formula. But just that it opens more doors for more authors and more kinds of stories. Yun. So, like I can show pictures of covers of books that I think have done their part in sort of changing perceptions of romance and opening doors for authors and characters, but still without changing the happy ending. When a book markets itself as romance without a happy ending, the romance community decides it's not a romance. Yeah. So that is the reaction usually of the romance reader community. And you'll see that in Twitter, you'll see that in Goodreads. They will label something as this is not a romance, or this is not. And we, as we authors become more active in the community of readers, and we watch, because I watch the rom-coms also. I'm a fan of the rom-coms. I have to warn them when something is not a romance, because I love the movies. I recommend them. But I have to put that warning because when you are involved in romance publishing, these are the rules. And then when I recommend something that doesn't follow those rules, baka balikan ako, or they won't trust me again. So we have to. That's something that we had to learn. We didn't know that in the beginning. Filipino authors interacting with the international romance reader community. We kind of had to learn that as we went along.
Nakakatakot naman, parang isasyan ka ng tumili. Hindi ka magkakaroon ng happy end.
Only because they want it labeled properly, like it's a drama, it's something. But when you call it kasi a romance, when you call something horror, when you call something crime, when you call something fantasy, there are set expectations, and then at some point, at some point people decide if it's worth their money or time based on that label that you use. So even romance, that's very, it's okay, I mean, it's okay to use it because we're so used to the way that we use it, it's almost interchangeable with love. But in publishing, it's very specific. The label romance is very specific.
For Prime and Sam, you could say na some of your films, especially Sleepless, hindi siya yung mold ng rom-com na alam ng mga tao. And baka bukas is very playful, yung Sleepless is very chill, and medyo parang may platonic thing going on. So, when you were writing these films, parang, was it outright na parang, okay, I'm gonna break away from the rom-com mold and maybe show people a different kind of love story that's not usually told in cinemas?
Yung Sleepless, I'm not the writer. Ang nagsulat actually is yung girlfriend ko, she's here. Ayan, si Jen. So yung Sleepless. Pero, so, didiscuss naman namin yung story. Shout out. So, ano pala, yung Sleepless, dream concept yun ni Jen. Kasi we both met sa Star Cinema. So, when we were making it, we weren't really thinking of breaking conventions. We weren't thinking na we're going to make something different from the usual rom-com mold. Parang, we just told a story that was truthful to us, that felt true to us, and sabi namin na if it doesn't fit convention, then okay lang. Well, this is an indie film, parang we don't really have a goal of selling to a mass audience. So, while we were making the film, we didn't have that in our heads that we were going to be revolutionizing the rom-com genre. We were going to break conventions. No, we just wanted to tell the truthful story of two people meeting and connecting. And if their connection doesn't necessarily lead to a romantic connection, then so be it. And if their connection stays in the platonic level, then so be it. Because for us, yung platonic connection, platonic love, in some ways, well, this is my personal opinion. In some ways, it's more powerful than a romantic love or romantic connection. Because a platonic love or platonic connection, if you think about it, it's not something that you do on impulse. Romance kasi, for it to be romance, parang it has to be impulsive. It has to be something in the moment. With platonic love, it's something that you process. It's something that you decide on. And for me, that will always be more powerful than something based on impulse. Of course, maybe you guys have a different idea, but that's for me.
I think, let's define what a rom-com is. And I'll use the definition that Direct Joyce gave during her Boy Abunda interview about Kita Kita. When she said like a rom-com needs to have, like a Filipino rom-com needs to have like a quirky girl and like a good-looking guy. So based on that, based on those two elements, I feel like Baka Bukas has a quirky girl and a good-looking romantic interest that just happens to be a girl. But I mean, and then parang, diba, like a Filipino rom-com, yung elements niya, meron like sasayaw si Sarah Geronimo sa ilalim ng ulan. Mga they have all these grand, ridiculous moments. And I feel like Baka Bukas also has that. May police chase sequence, the topless yung isang girl. They also have like, it also has these moments that are ridiculous. But I think the difference is yung, let's use a septic tank term, yung leveling ng direction. Like instead of it being like, look at this really dumb thing that this cute quirky girl is doing, instead of that being it like in your face, in Baka Bukas, parang it's just more like, oh, we're just gonna let it play out and not edit it heavily and put, intense scoring. Parang it lets the comedy part play out on its own. But yeah. So, but I think personally, I think it's a rom-com. But I would understand why, because of the treatment, people don't consider it as a romantic comedy.
Pero may protest yan. Si Mina.
I thought it was wrong. Yeah.
One of the things I noticed in your books is that medyo may situation talaga that you put in your characters and in parang to put them together. Parang medyo wacky, medyo minsan out of this world. So parang, how do you sustain that when you're writing a number of books for a year?
It's like that because that's how I prefer it. I like situation. I like unique situations and how it's like I like putting normal people through like a ridiculous situation and see how they act.
Maybe you could give the audience parang some examples of parang
Reading.
put them through.
No, but I like playing with that. Like the plot of my first book was two friends in college who pretended to date each other, and then later in life, how that affects their current relationships. The fact that they're friends, and the fact that this is the friend that your current is jealous of. Kasi ex mo yan, pero hindi mo talaga ex. Yun, that was a unique situation that I thought led to something very rom-com-y, and I liked plotting that out because then it's different. You can put different people in that situation and they'll act differently. So that's how I like plotting. But I've read books where it's pretty straightforward. They're neighbors, they see each other as kids, they grow up. Sometimes I've read romance novels that are more linear in storytelling. I just happen to prefer something a bit more quick in terms of testing people. That's because I have I guess one of the things about writing a romance novel and working with the publishers, at the time I was working with a publisher that required the entire story to wrap up in 150 pages. So that was a constraint that I lived with, and I had to make sure that the entire story would be told in a satisfying way with this many pages. I can imagine how film would have certain constraints based on running time, based on budget, but even if I had in theory all of the words, if I were to be published, only this much story would come out. So I needed to choose my words carefully. And that's how it started. That's why my plots were like that. That's why the situations are like that.
The good thing that was mentioned here is that parang merong situations that people are willing to take for the love story to go to something. So parang maybe let's start with Benedict. Medyo intense na yung situations na nangyari sa On the Wings of Love. Like, di ba, they have to be separated because they have to work. Sa Born for You, merong family feud. Sa Till There Was You, merong bisexual element. So parang how do you guys make sure that ito lang yung hangganan ng story na to and ito lang yung situation that the audience will take? Or parang medyo pinupush nyo further every now and then?
Hirap na ano talaga din yung question.
Ano yung, how do you test the audience
In terms of,
nung situation that they're willing to take?
it's not about the audience eh. When you're writing situations na ganyan, actually, it's about you. It's about your experience. It's about, when you say experience, yung mga nabasa mo, napanood mo, na-experience mo personally, that's where you get your your meetups. Diba yan eh? Yung meetups dun mangyayari yan eh. Pero ito ngayon, yung ginagawa ko, Piolo, RC, Alempoy, or TV, siguro next year din lalabas. At dito, tsaka lahat, sinabi ko, hindi, lahat yan magkakakilala yan sa bungguan. So, pag may hot wall, yung lahat yan nagkakabungguan. Because you want to feed on the yan eh. Sa akin dyan, it's the fantasy. Kasi lahat tayo, we want someone na makakabungguan natin dyan, then eventually magkakaroon tayo ng love story sa kanila. Di ba? Lahat tayo na pinapangarap natin eh. Na sana paglabas natin dyan, may makabungguan ako. Ay, mahilig ka rin sa libro. Ang boring naman ang love story mo na kapitbahay ko yan, nakikita ako nagbibihis yan, nasisilip ko. Gusto ko syempre yung yung romantic eh. So it comes from sa need ng tao. Kasi you want to satisfy their needs eh. Lahat naman tayo yun eh. Sa love story, especially when you're selling it to the public, you need situations na ina-aspire nila. Diba? You don't want a meetup na boring na ganito. So when you make ito, depende yan sa'yo ha. If you want something to sell, ganun yan, you fit sa aspiration ng tao. Diba? Otherwise, hindi yan mabenta. So ano ba yung usually ganun yan eh, ano ba yung mga pinapangarap mong sitwasyon? Diba? Nagdadating yung boyfriend mo, may mga bulaklak, may ganito. So lahat ginawa na namin yun. Sabi nga nung mga napangasawa ko, ba't di mo naman ginawa sa akin yun? Diba? Walang pagkakataon eh. Umigit ka agad eh. Kung love story, nagpakipot ka muna, nagpahabol ka agad. Joke. Ako marinig ng asawa. Pero ganun yun. Yung mga connections na ganyan, galing yan sa fantasy natin, sa mga nababasa, ganun. Pero usually, you want to feed the audience kung ano yung pinafantasize nila, o yung sa tingin nila magiging romantic eh. Diba? It can be, maski nakita kayo, diba? Nakita kayo, may patay dyan, pwedeng ganun eh, basta romantic.
Romantic na yung Mina na funeral. With Mina, with your books, ano yung, how do you test the audiences, or your, kung ano yung matitake ng situation?
Very carefully. Yeah. I have done that. I've introduced certain elements in my books that maybe are not normally part of romance that we write, or at least because there's romance novels, and then there's the way that Filipinos write romance novels. So years ago, there was absolutely no, we call them heat levels. So there were very low heat levels in romance books written by Pilipinos, because we thought that was what the audience preferred. Not that it was true, but that's what we thought was acceptable. And then we were finding out that no, I mean, if you can read certain heat levels from an American author, why not from a Filipino author? So that was gradual also, because authors were also learning how to write it, and now the books are hot. Years later. But it's really, again, to serve the audience. Readers know what they want to read, or they're looking for something in particular. Sometimes they want something sweet, sometimes they want something hot. So that's one thing that's changed in the years that we've been doing this, and with the community of writers that I'm part of. We are writing more hotter stuff. The careers of the main characters are changing. It used to be, if you look at a certain series of books from a certain year, it's probably all like advertising people. People who work in advertising, in writers, and then the careers are changing. You have main characters who are scientists, who are theater actors, who are indie rock stars. It's diversifying the characters, the situations. Yun. A recent book of mine that's about to be released, but it's already on Amazon, is about two people who've had a sex scandal separately with different people. And that took 20 plus books for me to be able to write something like that, and just start writing, just start even thinking about writing that there is a life after.
A sex scandal.
And a romance that ends happily for someone who has gone through something like that. So tagal before I could even think of putting myself into the mode that I could write something like that. But it's happening, and sometimes it's not that dramatic. Sometimes it's just, again, writing something with a scientist main character, with a plus size main character, with a woman who loves women main character. It's those small steps, but those are happening now, like with Filipino authored romance.
Right.
Sa films?
Siguro the main difference with the films is unlike sa TV na pwede mo tansyahin per episode, pwede mag-adjust. Sa film, once you commit to something, medyo yun na siya. So when it comes out, it's either people will watch it or people won't watch. Siguro what changes is after people see your movie and they react to it, or when you go to the cinemas and you see if a lot of people are watching, what's gonna change is how you're going to make your next movie, your taste, your sensibilities. And ano ulit yung question? Sorry.
Parang tinetest yung what the audience will take.
So you test it siguro when it comes to movies when you come out with a movie, how they're going to react to it, and it's up to you if you want to change with them, or if you want to keep doing what you think is a good movie, if you want to keep doing a movie that you'd like to watch.
I really like what Benedict said, that at the end of the day, it's ultimately about your personal preference and the books that you grew up with and the music that you listen to. I feel like, you're the best barometer of what your audience can take. Because more likely than not, like, you want people like yourself to watch or read whatever you're creating. But at the same time, I also feel like, going back to how unique the Filipino audience is, I really feel like, someone told me this in Vancouver last week, na the Filipinos, mataas yung threshold nila for corniness. like Filipinos really, and this is someone who was born and raised in Vancouver, but she's Filipino, but she's really like, oh, I really love how corny Filipinos are when it comes to love. And so, I guess it's different for Mina because she creates things that, are for a global audience. Pero, for us, if you're creating something for a Filipino audience, there is really no limit to how cheesy you can be, I feel. This is parang the cheesier it is, mas mag-work siya.
Maybe to close off, I want to ask you guys, how does it feel that you're responsible for creating the perception of romance of the audience that you address? Maybe with Benedict first.
Ulit yung question, hirap.
How does it feel na responsible guys to mold or shape yung perception of romance ng mga tao?
Ngayon, parang may iba to kasi piolo yung ginagawa ko mas matanda. Pero yung mga younger, ang tawag ito, malaking responsibility. Kasi you just cannot show them having sex, kissing, because the younger generation look up to this love teams. Gagawin nila yan. So recently, I did something na I said na ayoko, in a way parang sabi ko, ayoko itong gawin Kasi everybody will fuck sa likod ng kotse nila pag nakakapanood dito. Anyway, sabi ko, I feel responsible doing this. Hindi ako conservative na tao, Diyos ko. Sobrang popo ko. Ano binata. Pero sabi ko, I'm not conservative pero ayaw ko gawin to. Kasi people will watch this, young people will watch this, and they'll think that it's okay. Yes, it's happening, but it's not okay. Diba? It's not okay to show. Doon, kasi doon makikita, when you're working for TV, you have certain responsibilities sa audience mo, even for film or ano. Diba? And it's not only an entertainment medium. Diba? May mga nilalabas ka dyan that people will follow, people will believe. So nung ginawa yun, I was really apprehensive. Actually, ayaw ko. Pero sige, gawin natin yan. So there were mixed reactions. Pero for me, I didn't want it. Diba? Because pag may nilabas ka dyan, hindi naman nila magigets yung point after 2 weeks or 3 weeks Ang mag-gets nila dyan yung instant na nangyari. If they fuck sa likod ng kotse, ang isipin nila, uy, di fuck sa'yo ng kotse, fuck rin tayo sa kotse. Diba? Ganun ang isipin ng mga kabataan Kasi baka hindi nila mapanood yung second episode. Tapos pag ni-live stream yan o ini-stream yan sa internet, yun lang naman napapanoorin. Hindi nila mapapanood yung after 2 weeks, nag-suffer sila kasi nag-sex sila sa likod ng kotse. Hindi nila wala siya pakiramdam. Alam lang nila nag-sex, so sarap ng sex sa likod ng kotse, gawin rin natin, Diba? So we have that responsibility. That's just an example, marami pa yan. Diba? So, yun, careful ka doon. Hindi yan basta binibitawan. So, I hope sa yung iba rin, magamit rin yung medium na ng TV, film, etc. to promote those things.
So, yes, I do feel somewhat responsible, but our books kasi don't have the same reach as something that's seen by millions on TV and instantly by everyone, or even movies that for a week or so will get a certain amount of people watching it. Books, though, kind of stay there, even if only a few people read it at first. As long as it's around, more people will read it, and then the audience for it grows. So, I do feel responsible about how I portray romance, and I'm very serious about it. In my own writing, I'm very particular about consent. How I write about consent between the two characters. I'm very particular about what the woman does, that she has agency, that she gets to decide the things in her life, that she has female friendships, that things don't happen to her, that she has power to change things in her life and make decisions. So yeah, I'm very particular about that because we take cues from these stories, and that's what people end up picking up even after the romance and the kilig. So yeah, even though my books won't reach a certain audience, but what I try to do is in the community of authors that I'm part of. So it's a Facebook group. It's got about 200 people. 78 of them are active authors, I counted, producing over 150 books by now. So what we try to do in the community is, since we're working together and reading each other's books, we talk to each other about how we write about consent, that people in a relationship should willingly be in a relationship, that when something has a pattern of abuse, we actually write in, we advise each other on how to write, how we should not be writing, or at least we should not be portraying it as romance, because people see this, and if it's not my book, it's someone else's book. So we can't set the rules for everybody, but as long as it's a community and we're supportive of each other and we read each other's books, we point that out and that's how we take it seriously. This whole idea of how we portray romance.
For me, it's not really a responsibility, but more of a conviction. Kasi ito, I'm serious about this when I say that I really think that Disney movies, especially the earlier ones, I think it really fucked up a lot of kids and fucked up a lot of relationships. Because when you think about it, their main message is, if you love someone with all your heart, if you want something with all your heart, you just have to believe, and everything will fall into place. You will get it, and you'll have a happy ending. Like, your father mermaid will create a rainbow over your ship. As a kid, you're very impressionable, and that's the image you see. Like, wow, the world's such a nice place. I get everything I want. I just have to believe. But I don't know. For me, when you grow up and you realize that the world isn't like that, and more often than not, we end up not getting the things that we like. We end up not getting the perfect happy ending. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's why I think what kids should watch should be films. The recent ones with Pixar, Up and Toy Story 3. Those for me are the real happy ending stories. And when I try to make films, it's not really a responsibility, but a conviction whenever I make films, that to end that way, to say that it's okay. Did you guys watch Silver Linings Playbook? For me, that's the perfect rom-com film. That's the perfect way to end the movie. And so that's what I always try to do, because personally, I believe that happiness is here. It's what's here right now, and it's not a fantasy, and it's not elsewhere. It's here.
Yeah, same. Joke. No, I mean, yeah, for the first question, I talked about how we had shot two different endings: the Star Cinema fairy tale ending and the ending that we stuck with. And I feel like what Prime said, it's like sometimes you gotta like parang life you just gotta choose yourself, and choosing yourself is also a happy ending, just in general, not for romance. And parang it's not really a responsibility, but it's just kind of like what Frank said, like you grow up with all these tropes of what a happy ending is, and then when you're an adult and you see a film that kind of like resembles what you're going through in real life, it affirms, that place that you're in, and it makes you feel better about yourself. That like even if that relationship didn't work out, it still ended up as a happy ending because you turned out as a better person. So yeah.
Thanks, guys. Maybe we can get a few questions from the audience. Meron ba?
Yung fans ni Mina.
Kasi ba nag-win si Mina?
Someone has a question.
Okay. Say your name and ba student ka?
Hi, my name is Hannah. I'm from Veritas Catholic School. I'm a grade 10 student. So, growing up, I've always admired romance novels. My first romance novel was The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. And then as what Mr. Cruz said, Disney did inspire my first encounters with what would love be like. So it's always like, oh, it's gonna be a happy ending. It's all that. And then one thing I'd like to ask is, how do you write a story that does not necessarily have a happy ending, but then even though after the relationship you're a good person, and then you look back and you're like, there's always that saying where you invested something and you lost that investment. How do you make it like a really good story, or how do you convey it properly? Thank you.
Can't believe you're only in grade 10.
Grade 10 pala dito kung ano sa alam mo natin ano yun. Masabi ko.
So it doesn't have to be a romance. The book that you want to write, that if it's the story, if it's the journey of one person and the people they meet along the way that sort of help them grow, it will be called something else. It might be called women's fiction. It might be called YA. It might be called something. The decision to make it about the relationship makes it a romance. If you decide not to make it about the relationship but about the person, then that makes it something else. And actually, it might narrow your focus, and then it might become a better book because you know that it's about this. It's about this. So if the question is how to write it, then well, just my suggestion is to think about what you want to say. So you're kind of there. You've kind of decided that the book is about this. Is about this person realizing something, and then you kind of build backwards from there. But yeah, don't worry about it being. It can have it. This person could have romance in her life, or grief, or success. She can have a lot of things. Getting stuck on the idea that it has to be about the romance. And I'm a romance author, and I'm saying this. It's not always romance. You can write a good book and can totally not be romance, and it's still going to be a good book. So, just I focus on the craft, and not necessarily that you have to meet certain genre requirements, unless that's what you want to do. And I will see you because I will go to your school.
Wala na. No one wants. Okay.
About writing ba? You're grade 10. Honestly, a lot of people are writing about ganito, even us. It takes a lot of research. In writing something or anything, it takes a lot of research. If you don't have the research, it takes a lot of something in you. So write something that you know. Kasi if you write something that nabasa mo lang, ganito, mararamdaman ka agad yan na this is fake. So magugulat ka, parang the readers are very, what do you call this? They know what they're reading, ma-detect nila, this is, parang invento lang to eh. Even if you're inventing something, you should know what you're inventing. So, kasi madaming writers parang kulang sa research, kung di naman kulang sa research, they're trying to feel yung emotion ng 50 years old when they're 20 years old. And it's really different. Diba? You need to research that. Ako, I'm researching I'm writing about mga 19, 20 years old. Anong alam ko sa kanila? Diba? And it's different, bawat generation, iba siya. So, kaya nag-iiba rin yung writing, nag-iiba yung milieu, lahat ng iba yan.
The guy in red.
Hi, I'm Gab from UP, third year student. Ang question ko, kasi sabi ni Prime kanina na growing up, a lot of us are exposed to Disney films where they have a happy ending, albeit predictable. But now, yung works niya and his peers, mostly, I'm not gonna use the term sad, like Sir Ben said, because a sad ending can be a happy ending. So I'm gonna use the term fragile, a fragile ending. And that's, yun yung ending usually ng works today. So, for the four of you, ano sa tingin, and that's a trend, di ba, fragile. There can be happy endings, but mostly fragile endings. So, what can you infer based on your work or the work on your peers, or other aspects that you observe, will be the trend regarding the endings or the messages of future writers and filmmakers? Or what do you think the audience will be clamoring for in the future, based on what you observe? Yeah.
I think it's a lot like parang when Don said, does anyone have questions? And everyone was quiet and then no one wanted to ask anything until someone asked something. I feel like it's the same, like in terms of how people are dealing with their emotions, especially quote-unquote millennials. Like everyone has Tumblr, everyone has Twitter, everyone has Instagram, where they can post quotes or things that are really fragile. So this mass sharing of emotion has opened up this valve where it's suddenly okay to be fragile. Because for the longest time before social media, I mean, you would write something in your diary and no one would ever see it, and people will think you're a happy, stable person until at some point you break. But you know what I mean? Like everyone thinks that the other person is happy, and so the norm was to have a perfectly happy ending. But then with social media and everyone started to share their emotions, and maybe social media has also helped encourage people to be more open with these emotions and to be more accepting. Like that's because film is always a reflection of the society it serves. So that's why like when people became more sensitive and more emotional, films also started reflecting what their audiences were feeling. So who knows, maybe we'll go back to being a closed-off society and we'll have happy endings again. But for now, I feel like this fragility is going to stick around a while.
I agree with Sam, and I think sobrang naging laking effect ng social media and kung paano tayo nagko-connect and open up to each other with the way films, books, and are being written right now. Ako kasi personally, sobrang laki ng influence ng Tumblr and before ng live journal sa akin and how I make films. So, ayun, it's a really exciting time especially for us, for filmmakers, because when I would like to think that Sleepless, my first film, is an unconventional, I would like to call it a love story. It's an unconventional love story, but when it came out during Q Cinema, a considerable number of people watched, and I was really surprised. And even with the recent films, even Sam's film, it was always sold out, and I couldn't even watch it when I tried to. So, you know, the audience really is changing, and I think the culmination of that is kita kita. You know, kita kita. It's really good. I would like to believe that it's a game changer. It's going to change how filmmakers and studios who fund the filmmakers are going to approach romance and rom-coms. So it's a really exciting time for us.
Questions?
Hi, I'm Patrick. Regarding from the thing that you were mentioning about Silver Linings Playbook, and my question is, how do I really craft a happy ending connecting to Sir Ben's insight about, besides feeling the aspiration of the person, considering the build-up of how you were able to craft the plot, how do I really craft, what elements do I need to put in so my ending is happy?
Question.
Regardless of I use the term craft kasi I just want to encapsulate both writing and film as well. So how do I craft happy ending elements that I need to consider?
Craft? How do you craft?
Yeah, what goes into making a happy ending?
Kahit anong ending ko, basta napatuwa mo yung audience sa ending. Happy ending yun. Hindi, totoo yun ha. Pag yung after a film or after a show or whatever, after reading something, and the audience feels elated o masaya siya, so that's a happy ending. Diba? Or bittersweet, kung ano man yan. So how do you craft that? Well, if you have to study that. Pag-aaralan mo yan kasi you have 5 sequences, mag-ending ka. It doesn't start dun sa 5 na yon. If you have 20 sequences, yung happy ending na yon, mangyayari yun pag maraming pinagdaan ng masama yung tao. Diba? Eh kung wala naman silang, if there were no challenges of obstacles, tapos happy sila, hindi happy yun. Parang, wala naman nangyari, hindi happy. Diba? So usually yun, you have to put a lot of obstacles sa isang love story para happy yung ending. So that's one trick. Diba? So maraming pagdadaanan. I want to answer yung kaninang question, trends. You're talking about what will be the next trend. Honestly, nobody knows kung ano yung magiging next trend. A trend starts pag may nag-umpisa na. So you cannot predict a trend. Diba? Otherwise, lahat ng tao gagawin yan. Hanggang di nag-umpisa pag walang nakakabutas, hindi magiging trend yan. May isang makakabutas, magiging 2, magiging 3, gagayahin yan. That becomes a trend. Pero, the only thing na magagawa mo is to be honest sa ginagawa mo. Kasi if you don't be honest and you keep looking on trends, gagayahin ko to, gagawa ko ganito, you cannot set a trend. Diba? Yung kita-kita, accident yan, ang gusto lang nila dyan, 90,000, 40,000. Diba? Ngayon, it's set a trend. Diba? Kasi, uy, nag-work eh. So until hindi mo ma-predict ang trend.
The book version of the trend question. I'm from a particular school of thought that I wouldn't encourage following trends or trying to predict them also, and also because romance books, ang dami pang stories na hindi nasusulat, tsaka ang dami pang hindi nakikita ng mundo, especially from Filipinos. We have not. If you think of your favorite romance story or book and it features Americans, then kulang pa. So we don't actually need to come up with a trend or ride a trend or figure it out. There's going to automatically be an audience for that thing that you crave that isn't there yet. So it's all of these things. So I can make a Twitter thread with links. Maliit lang yung iPad ko. But there, like, imagine historical romance that's not Regency England. It's actually Tang Dynasty China. By Jeannie Lin. Historical romance that's set in Civil War America, but the black female lead character is not a slave but a spy. Diba? Ang dami. And it's still the same mold. Hold Me is contemporary romance. The lead is a trans woman. First, Santino has an entire romance series with bi and gay men. Coffee Boy by Austin Chant has a trans man lead. Ankara Press in Africa is all these romances that are cliche but set in Africa with African women. We have not seen that. Indie Reads, it's the first Muslim romance that I read. It's called The Contract, set in Pakistan. It's the first one that I read, so like I'm trying to catch up. Don't Tell My Mother by Bridget Bautista, who's in a panel next door about LGBT. I told you about the community of romance authors that I'm part of. There are 78 authors, over 150 books, and only one female romance book so far. Dami pa, hindi nasusulat. If the Dress Fits, plus size, main character, Filipina author, Beginner's Guide by Six de los Reyes. And Filipina scientist main character was part of NPR's Best of 2016 books last year, 2016. So that's just a few, that's just the stuff I own right now. If you look at the plot of that story, the plots of the stories, you're gonna call them cliche, but if your favorite version of that story still features an American or a Brit or a white person, then you have not seen or read everything yet, and we have not written and discovered everything yet. So maybe not the trends first. Let's fill up all the gaps that currently, diba? Kulang pa. So anyway, if anyone wants to write romance and you think your story won't sell, just write it, please. You never know. You never know.
I want to answer that question. It's really, actually your question is on your definition of what a happy ending is. The traditional happy ending, because I also used to work for Star Cinema. The traditional happy ending is a character will go through something while trying to achieve something, and at the end of your movie, that character should get what he was working hard for. For example, a classic example would be A Very Special Love. It's the first John Lloyd Sarah movie. The character, Sarah's character there, Lyda, she wanted to have a romantic relationship with John Lloyd, and John Lloyd's character wanted to be successful in his magazine endeavor. At the end, so they go. So the first two acts of the movie, you show them trying to achieve their goals and failing, and at the end of the movie, they get everything they want. Sarah's going to get John Lloyd. John Lloyd's going to get Sarah. John Lloyd's going to be a successful magazine mogul or something, and the ending theme song will play, crane up, slow-mo, everything that works. So that's a traditional happy ending. But for me personally, not everyone may agree, but I would like to use the watermelon as a metaphor. Because there's a trick to making watermelon taste sweeter. If you put a little salt in the watermelon, it's actually going to taste a lot sweeter. So for me, I'm going to use one of my favorite rom-coms, Silver Linings Playbook, as an example. Yes, he got the girl, but it's sprung from something he didn't get what he originally wanted, which was to get back with his wife. Because the main character there wanted to get back with his wife. He didn't get that, he got something else. And that was the silver lining in his sad situation. And by the time the movie ended, the director could have ended with a dolly out shot. But he didn't end there. He ended in a house where they were having, I think, lunch, and his mom was cooking, and it showed the family picture. It was a really mundane ending, and I cried, but I didn't cry during the dolly out super romantic shot, but that was where I cried because that was closer to what I was experiencing. And it makes it more real, it makes it happier for me. Because when characters end up getting everything they want, I don't know for other people, but that's not how I experience life. For me, life is sometimes settling is a part of life, making do is part of life, not getting everything that you hope for is part of life, and that's okay because there's a silver lining to that. So for me, that's what makes a happy ending.
Maybe we can get to the last two questions.
So hi, my name is Jem and I graduated from UP Los Baños. And they actually shot the Manananggal movie on our floor. Okay. Okay, so I was really interested in what Sam said earlier about the quirky girl being really popular in Filipino movies. So I'm sure, I mean, you guys know romance, so I'm sure you're familiar with the term manic pixie dream girl. So it's kind of a Western concept at first, and right now it's really ridiculed because it gives all the agency to the guy, and it's all about the quirky girl who changes him. So I'm wondering if, as romance creators, is that something you embrace or try to sidestep? Because I don't think quirky girl is necessarily a bad trope as long as it's about her story is about her. So I'm wondering how you guys deal with that, the quirky girl popularity in Philippine media.
Benedict.
Quirky sila eh. Hindi, una-una, depende sa artista. Sa amin depende sa artista yan. Hindi pwedeng mag-quirky yung iba na depende yan eh. May artista na hindi pwedeng mag-quirky yan, sasabihin mo, bumukang tanga yan pag nag-quirky. So depende sa artista. Sa amin sa TV. Pero, in all, depende rin yan kung sino yung ka-partner. Yung quirky girl works pag ano yung lalaki, pag seryoso, etc. Hindi lang yan sa Western, hindi lang dito, nag-umpisa na actually sa Korean novelas di ba? At sa Korean movies, lahat ng Korean na bida, di ba? Seryoso yung lalaki. Tapos, ganun siya. Lahat ng Korean ganyan. Actually, hindi nag-start yan sa Amerika, nag-start yan sa Korea. Di ba? Yung mga Korean, kaya in-adapt dito, ngayon lahat, ay, nag-work ko sa gawin natin queer kasi ganito. Kasi seryoso si Daniel pa dito eh, queer kasi ganito. Diba? So, depende yan eh. Tapos, depende talaga eh. Minsan ang kailangan mong gawin dyan, to be honest with your characters. Diba? If find a character, ito lang ang advice, don't create a boring character. Kasi boring yun. So, if you make a boring story, boring yun. You make a boring character, boring yung, boring yung movie mo, yan. Kasi yun ang susundan eh. Diba? Make an interesting character, then follow the character. Don't invent plot. Diba? Just follow the character, may mangyayari yan. Gabayan mo ng konting plot. Kasi that's the fault of a lot of, yung material nila is dictated by plot. But if you look at the character, you'll question, gagawin pa ng character yan? Ang dami ngayon, ganyan eh, parang, hindi nyo naman gagawin yan totoo eh. Pero because we have a set plot, yun ang gagawin ng character hanggang ending. But if you follow the character, if you really know your character, yung character nyo, tawag dito, and while doing the character, it evolves. Diba? Don't be trapped by the plot. If you're writing, kami talaga, ako sa lahat ng naging writers ko, sinasabi ko, hindi gagawin ng characters yan. Diba? Hindi gagawin niya yan. Dahil kasi yung character niya eh. So, find an interesting character, follow her or him. Yun ang magiging story niyo. Instead of making a story, then putting a character in it.
And also, if we're gonna get, well, it's unfair. Cause I have two girls in my thing, so the politics of gender relations doesn't really play into that. But I'm just gonna, what are you taking up in UP Las Baños?
Veterinary medicine.
Oh, okay. If you can take a film
I'm
elective.
taking something more literary later.
Yeah, or if you can take a film or literary elective. I don't know if they teach this in English or lit, but when you start, when you go into script writing class, they tell you how to develop characters, and they say that your two main characters should always be opposites or balance. They should be able to balance
No matter
each
the
other.
gender.
Sorry?
No matter the gender.
Yeah, no matter the gender. So, tama yung sinabi ni Benedict na dahil yung isa seryoso, automatically, especially in Filipino culture, laging may makulit. So, laging may seryoso and laging may makulit. But I also feel like, so there's a Kenkoy girl in Philippine cinema. We don't have manic pixie dream girls. Because manic pixie dream girls, like what you said, they require a lot of agency. They take over the plot, and then the plot revolves around them. But
Right.
because like Filipino films are traditionally made by studios for love teams, parang you can't really play around with that trope. And also another factor is that Manic Pixie Dream Girls are kind of more sexually liberated. Like they seduce whoever, like they seduce the awkward guy that they're going after. Yeah, and it's in Philippine cinema. That's in traditional Philippine cinema. We, aren't that open yet. I mean, like what Benedict said, when you have sex, there's consequence. If you're not married and you have extramarital relations, you're gonna get struck by a car or something later on. Yeah. So.
Medyo matinding consequence.
So yeah, I mean the technical answer would be because they teach you in school to always come up with characters that are opposites of each other. Anong tawag dun? This flip, switch, something. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Last question.
Hello, I'm Violet, though I'm wearing black today. Sorry. I'm a part of Mina's romance class. And we're currently writing something in the works today. I think it's already shown in... Well, hindi ko pa pwede sabihin eh. Yung ano po, I would like to ask all of you, in creating happy endings, what is the more important thing? Character or plot? Or if it either works both ways, what do you do to make that work into that happy ending or whatever you want of a happy ending? And tatanong ko lang po kay Sir Benedict, buti na lang po wala na si Derek Ramsey sa channel nyo. So, I really want to ask, why do you keep killing him dati? Thank you.
Sorry, may explain ko yung context. May rule in our romance writing class, we have a playful comment there na bawal kasi pumatay ng character in the class that I do. So I refer to it as Don't Kill Derek Ramsey kasi ang daming movies where his death is part of the plot or yeah, either she's moving on from him or he dies at the end, something like that. Anyway.
Yung niya, ayaw bang matay si Derek Ramsey? Napapanood siya. Diba gusto mong patayin? Ay, ninong ng anak ko yun. Kaya... ano ulit yung question? Bakit? Ba't pinapatay si Derek Ramsey muna lagi? Saan ba siya pinagpapatay? Ano yung question?
My main question is, what do you factor the most in happy endings? Character or plot?
Both.
How?
Kasi the plot will move the story eh. The character will keep you watching the story. Diba? Or following it. Yung plot, it will keep it going eh. Tapos yung character na susundan nyo dyan, whatever happens to him, if you got hooked sa kanya sa umpisa, susundan mo na yan eh. So like that, it's both. It has to be an interesting plot yung mangyari sa kanya. Katulad napaka-interesting na hindi nagagawa, yung hahabulin sa airport. Hindi ginagawa yan, Diyos ko. May basta laging hahabulin, naalis lagi yung isa. May laging aalis na isa, hahabulin, Diyos ko. Minsan papakamod na, habulin na naman. Ba't papakipot masyado to? So it's both. So dapat, ang ending, yun, it's both plot and character. Susundan mo parehas yun eh. Yun nga. The story will flow because of the plot, the character, yung susundan mo because engaged ka na sa kanya.
I try, even though I work with words and on a page, I try because I'm a fan of rom-coms and I'm very influenced by rom-coms. I want my ending to be rom-com-ish, huge, emotional, and parang setting a scene. So that's the challenge for me because if you were writing and using words and having them appear on the page, you can actually just get away with the two of them just talking it out at the end and reaching their happy ending anyway, but that's not fun. So, yun yung thing that I push myself, and that's why I watch the movies. That's why I consume that media also to get a visual feel for scenes like this, not just the emotion and not just parang checking na, okay, we resolved this character thing. It has to look good too, and then I have to describe it. So I want that feeling. I want it to feel like, for the reader, I want the reader to feel that they saw it, and that it was visually satisfying in their heads.
For me, character, kasi yung plot for me, it's just a result of the decisions of the character. So, slave ng plot for me ang character. And even if you have a certain ending in mind, you have a certain direction that you want your story to go to, your characters can change that anytime while you're writing, or even while you're already shooting the movie. Sometimes you're going to see something and you're going to realize something about your character, and oh shit, I need to change my story. We need to change this. It happens when you prioritize your character over your plot. That's going to happen. And for me, I'm not the one's going to decide what the ending's going to be. It's going to have to be the characters. So if I believe that if you listen to them and you really look and listen, you'll know your ending.
I feel like you're missing a third crucial point. So you need to have your character, you need to have your plot, and you need to have the intent of your work. So when you start creating something, you have to think about what you want to say or what it's gonna stand for. So you think of your work as kind of like a clothesline, and then you have all these things that you hang onto it. So parang, what do you want? What do you want your work to say? So I mean, not in all cases, but in some cases, your ending could be the period in your statement. So when you go into writing anything, you have like your plot, you have your characters, you have your meet cute, you have your quirky girl, you have your handsome boy, and you also have that one thing you're trying to say, whether it be gender equality, LGBTQ equality, love sucks, love is great, everyone is happy, everyone dies. Parang you have this universal theme in your head that you have to keep in mind when you're creating something, so that when it comes to having to make crucial creative decisions, like what Prime said, like he'll rewrite something before he shoots a scene. You have that voice at the back of your head that's saying, oh, but this is what you're trying to say, and it helps you keep in line, and it helps you keep on the road to your ending. So, yeah.
All right, thank you guys. Let's give a round of applause for our panelists. Benedict, Mique, Esguerra, Cruz, and Samantha. All right, thanks for sticking around, guys.